as well as the head of the city's Office of Reintegration Services, Cecily Bradford Jones. Councilman Derek Green's Legislative Director, Frank Iannuzzi, is here in place of Mr. Green, who is traveling. And the Mayor of Philadelphia, Jim Kenney, is on his way and will be joining us shortly. And thank you to all of you. Yeah. And thank you to all of you who are for being here with us on what we hope will be a memorable and powerful night. So why are you here? What made you want to spend almost 3 hours of your Wednesday evening listening to a half a dozen formerly incarcerated people tell their stories? Seriously, I'm asking a real question. Please take a moment to think about that, because we're going to come back to it later on this evening. I'll explain why I'm here and why we decided, along with the Center for Returning Citizens and Frontline Dads, to host this evening. This evening is, in part, a celebration of the past year of work done by the Reentry Project. I'm going to name us all. The Reentry Project partners are Generosity, WHYY, WRD, El Sol Radio, the Philadelphia Citizen, Next City, Klein College of Media and Communication, Muhlenberg College, Billy Penn, The Inquirer, The Daily News, Philly.com, PhillyCAM, the Philadelphia Tribune, and the Public School Notebook. Over the past year, we as a collaborative have done more than 150 stories across all mediums, held several events, including a hackathon, which we'll learn a little bit more about tonight, had some impact on public policy, broadened our own horizons in terms of our relationships to one another as media competitors. Thanks to the generous support from the James S. and Jane L. Knight Foundation, the Solutions Journalism Network, and Klein College of Media and Communications at Temple University, we've shown a spotlight on reentry, an issue that has lurked perpetually on the periphery, despite the fact that Philadelphia has one of the largest proportional populations of formerly incarcerated people in the country. Our Reentry Project reporting had a concerted focus on how people in this city are working to solve the many challenges faced by those who have spent time inside. This event tonight, then, on the one hand, is very simple and straightforward. We'll be hearing from those who have been working for years in the field of reentry to discuss effective solutions to what can feel like an intractable problem. We're going to be learning about what works. But tonight is also about something profound. The people you hear on the stage have spent a combined 96 years incarcerated. They are people who have paid their debt to society, yet remain stuck in an invisible cobweb of public policies, harsh stigma, and complex guidelines that limit what they can do, where they can live, how they spend their time, and who they can be. Formerly incarcerated people are often treated as second-class citizens. Many people believe that, at best, they deserve what they got, and maybe they deserve more. This night is about trying to understand, as we say in journalism, the other side. The folks speaking here tonight are not just cases of exceptional people who've made it. They're people who, upon setting the course of their own lives straight, dedicated themselves to improving the system for others. We asked them to present to you, not only because they have valuable experience, but because even those who work in the reentry sphere don't always take the time to listen. A quick personal story. Before moving back to Philadelphia, I spent 10 years living abroad as an international correspondent, reporting from more than a dozen countries in the global south. Everywhere I went, I noticed that the fixes being funded and implemented to address the multitude of challenges faced by everyday people in the developing world are, by and large, designed by people who have no firsthand understanding of the problems they set out to solve. Agricultural development policies are created by people who have never spent a day in their life farming. Anti-poverty programs are written by people who have no idea what it's like to go hungry. That's not to say that solutions designed by outsiders can't work. Sometimes they do. But the fact that this outsider fix formula was the norm rather than the exception seemed a little strange to me. As a journalist, I saw an opportunity. What did the people with lived experience think about this? What strategies have they implemented on their own, absent grand resources, that are proving just as effective, if not more? And what are the parts about their history that enable them to come up with these solutions? I spent quite a few years asking those questions, and the more I asked, the more wisdom, knowledge, and compelling stories I found. Reentry in a U.S. context is no different. I would bet that every reporter and editor who's worked on this project over the last year has had a moment when they've realized that the sharpest insight into the story that they were pursuing came from the person most directly affected by the issue. So that's what tonight is about for me, why I'm here. This evening is an opportunity for us to give you some of what we've had the chance to understand up close. On behalf of the Reentry Project, I feel honored to have had two incredible community partners in this event, Frontline Dads and the Center for Returning Citizens. It was their insight that steered this evening, and it is as much their event as it is ours. Before we move forward, I'd like to ask you to do one thing. Take out your cell phones. I know normally people tell you to put them away. Just take them out real quick. If tonight goes well, this model for presenting fixes to reentry or other social problems could be replicated in the region, and maybe even nationally. We're not many here tonight, but we're mighty. So hold up those phones, take a selfie, take a picture of someone next to you if you want, or just share that you're at this event with the hashtag Reentry Blueprint on Twitter, on Facebook, whatever you want to do. Those of you listening on Word, those of you watching us on PhillyCAM, you can join in by tweeting hashtag Reentry Blueprint and tagging us at Reentry Updates. Tell us where you're listening from. And throughout the night, don't hold back. If there's something that hits you, tweet it out there. Let's see if we can get Reentry Blueprint trending, at least in this little section of the country. So, getting on with it. It is my distinct honor to segue into some introductory words by Michelle Alexander. Ms. Alexander is a highly acclaimed civil rights lawyer, advocate, and legal scholar. She's best known for her book, The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration and the Age of Colorblindness. She had a previous engagement in Ohio this evening, but was very inspired by the premise of our event and wanted to participate in some way. So she sent us a video. Ladies and gentlemen, Michelle Alexander.
Hi, my name is Michelle Alexander, and I'm thrilled to welcome all of you to the Reentry Blueprint, Solutions by Formerly Incarcerated People. I wish so much that I could be there with you, and although I cannot be there in person, I can assure you that I am with you in spirit. I have no doubt that this will be a phenomenal gathering. It's an important opportunity for formerly incarcerated people and their families to point the way forward. For the past several decades now, our nation has been in a race to incarcerate. Our incarceration rate has increased exponentially over the past several decades. We now have the highest rate of incarceration in the world, dwarfing even highly repressive regimes like Russia, China, and Iran. In the 1970s, we had about 300,000 people locked in cages. Today, we now have more than 2 million people behind bars, more than 6 million people under correctional control, and more than 60 million people branded criminals or felons saddled with criminal records that will follow them for the rest of their lives, and authorized legal discrimination in employment, housing, access to education, and basic public benefits. Millions of people in this country are denied the right to vote and excluded from juries for no reason other than their criminal record. We have a crisis of incarceration and mass criminalization in this country. And finally, the voices of formerly incarcerated people are beginning to be heard. For decades now, we've heard from all kinds of people about our criminal justice system and crime in our communities. We've heard from police, prosecutors, politicians, lawyers like me, and sometimes victims. But one group of people has been conspicuously absent, their voices excluded from the media and from political discourse. excluded from the rooms where policy decisions are being made that will affect their lives and the lives of their family and their communities. And that group that's been persistently excluded is formerly incarcerated people. People who know best how this system does more harm than good. The very people who are most likely to be able to imagine the kinds of alternative approaches to justice and to community building that hold some hope for our future. And so it is way past time for gatherings like this. And I couldn't be more thrilled that the Center for Returning Citizens and formerly incarcerated people around this country are finally demanding that their voices be heard and organizing for the restoration of basic civil and human rights and hosting gatherings like this one where formerly incarcerated people and their families can begin to imagine together how their communities can be rebuilt and organized in a way that might allow them not only to survive this era of mass incarceration, but to thrive and bring this era finally to an end. There are many, many reasons why it's absolutely essential for formerly incarcerated people to have a voice in the policy debates that will likely determine their future, the future of their communities. Obviously, they know best. But it's important for them to be heard also because mountains of research shows now that people do not change their mind about policy or politics or law or justice systems based on facts or data alone. No, people change their mind based on stories, based on narratives. People change their mind when they hear from people with personal experience who have a different worldview, a different story to tell about the way things are and the way they ought to be. Personal stories and narratives, personal experience and the perspectives of individuals who've had a wildly different life experience have the potential to change our world, to change how people think about justice, what they imagine is possible in their communities, and to rethink the people who have been demonized and stereotyped and stigmatized for so long. It is unlikely that our nation will ever change its mind about how we treat criminals until we hear from those who have been demonized and stigmatized and labeled as criminals. To hear their stories, to hear their voices, and to come to hear what they imagine for their communities, for their own lives, and for their families, and to recognize that it is not unlike the dreams that we all have for our own communities and for our own families. There is so much brilliance and wisdom and useful experience in this room. And if you are someone who has never had the opportunity to hear from formerly incarcerated people, this is your chance to listen and learn. I guarantee not only will you learn something, but you will be inspired and motivated to ensure that their voices and their solutions and perspectives get to be heard by wider and wider audiences in the months and years to come. Thank you so much for being here, and I wish you all the best for a productive, inspiring, and meaningful gathering.
Good evening. As I was sitting there, I was looking at the step. I was going to try to take it in one leap, but the last time I tried, I ended up in the emergency room, so decided against it. But good evening. My name is Ruben Jones.
My name is John Darrell.
And we want to welcome you tonight, and we really appreciate from our hearts the outpouring of support and emotion and just pure interest in what we're bringing to you tonight. So you just want to take an opportunity to give yourselves a hand for coming out.
We also want to say that it's extremely difficult to follow Michelle Alexander.
Absolutely. Just a little bit. And again, give it up for Gene Radowski and the Reentry Project. It was their vision to bring this project to you. We partner in a way that allow us to bring our insight and expertise. So we tip our hat to you just for having the vision. And we invite you to join us on the journey tonight that'll be filled with, as Michelle said, imagination. Let me get off that. I think it feels like Halloween, so.
And to us, this is a historic evening. It is not often when the voices of formerly incarcerated leaders are honored and shared. And I'd like to second Ruben in thanking Jean. She's been a joy to work with, and the Reentry Project has been so inspiring to all of us who have put in so much work over the years on the street corners, in the communities, in the jails, attempting to transition people successfully through their journey to freedom. And it has often been a serious struggle where we are underfunded, under-resourced, and not recognized for our work. We view this as the beginning of a new day in the city of Philadelphia and hopefully a blueprint and a model for the rest of the country.
Glenn Martin is famous for saying that those closest to the problem are also closest to the solution, but furthest away from the resources. And we want to really echo that tonight by demonstrating to you that it's not just the men and women who appear on the stage tonight. There are literally thousands of men and women across Philadelphia and millions across the country with the lived experience and the expertise to deliver a new message for America and a new transformation for reentry. And I want to take a minute. I don't want to out anyone, but I do want to take the opportunity to invite anyone who's ever spent more than 3 seconds in handcuffs, in a jail cell, on supervision, on house arrest, on an ankle bracelet, to just stand so you can see the brilliance and the expertise in this room that's often overlooked and often devalued. Many of these people we work with every day. We honor them through our work. We support each other. My team, Cameron, Hassan, Denise, Chevelle, Mia, Rob. We really want to stress that this is not about.
Don't forget my team.
No, I can't.
Naisha and Nick.
Absolutely. I was going to let you do that. But we really want to, this is a collective victory to be in this position tonight and to be able to have the world, because we are broadcasting on radio and internet, hear the voices of those that are formerly voiceless and powerless and unheard. Hear the ideas. Hear just the sheer imagination and the power of commitment that everyone that's going to come before you tonight will share, who have demonstrated through their personal conviction and transformation, but also through what they've given back to the world around them.
And we'd like to thank you for coming out this evening, but also to encourage you to take this evening to heart.
Absolutely.
Because in this city, our voices have not been heard, but this is the beginning of us raising our voices in earnest. And we'd like for those who are in the positions of power, those who run the city government, those who run the prisons. Recently, I had the wonderful opportunity to go into FCI Smithville. And I was invited there by the Lifers Association, and Ruben and I are designing workshops so that the lifers can teach other prisoners to move themselves forward. And this is something that I learned and was taught by Dr. Matulis Shakur, and it's a model that can be successfully used in our state and our county prisons. But it took those brothers 2 years to get us inside those walls. And that shouldn't be. We have the solutions. We have the blueprints. Let us be about our work and support us in our work.
Absolutely. So how many people are ready for a transformative night? How many people are ready to charge that hill and fight for change? How many people are ready to run through that brick wall for justice? How many people are willing to loan me $5 when we're over so I can get to Oh, that's a different story.
I thought you were in Uber tonight.
I was trying to pay the bill. But we do have a few technical things. So logistically, the bathroom is to your left. You got this door, make a left if you need to use it. If you have an iPhone, we're going to ask you to put it on airplane mode. If you have a Android, we're going to ask you to just kind of put it on vibrate. And if you have a beeper or a flip phone, we're going to ask you to throw it in the trash. It's outdated. This ain't the 80s. So, without further ado, we're going to invite our first speaker up, a gentleman that John and myself know personally as a fellow Just Leadership Fellow. And I just want to say, just off the record, he did something, I hope he gets an opportunity to talk about it, as a formerly incarcerated person who was able to transform the mayor's office in Connecticut by creating a space for reentry that was designed and ran by a formerly incarcerated person. And I think that there's no better way to kick this night off but by bringing someone to the stage who's actually done it and can show you the evidence that it's effective and it works and can help us replicate it across the country. So please welcome to the stage the one and only Mr. Lewis Reed.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Repeat after me. I am Meek Mills. Repeat after me. I am Meek Mills. Repeat after me. I know Meek Mills. While you may not necessarily know him personally, I can tell you that there are more than 70 million individuals in the United States of America who are formerly incarcerated and or individuals who live with criminal histories. So whether you know Meek Mills as a celebrity, I'm certain that you very well may know a Meek Mills indirectly. So let's get right into what we need to get into. So with that having been said, my name is Lewis L. Reed. Lewis L. Reed, where am I pointing? I'm pointing back there? Thank you so much. My name is Lewis L. Reed. And tonight I'm going to be presenting to you on 6 steps to fall up when you trip down. 6 steps to fall up when you trip down. 6 steps to fall up when you trip down. And evidence-based techniques for reducing recidivism and strengthening reentry. So before you guys actually get bored, obviously, oftentimes when we have information, it typically comes at the end of a presentation. But I wanted to be able to give you my information now. In the event if I start boring you, you can either tweet me, you can follow me on Instagram, you can follow me on Facebook or Twitter, etc. Okay. So now that you have my information, let's move on. So one of the things that we're going to be talking about tonight, and there's kind of a delay here. I think that NFL is actually has something to do with what we're going to be talking about. So one of the things that we're going to be talking about tonight, stay with me, I'm just doing this for suspense. This is just for suspense. Okay, let me move a little bit this way. Okay, this is me when I actually had more hair and was far much more handsome. 139-59014. 139-59014. I served 13 and a half years in federal prison. 13 and a half years in federal prison. 13 and a half years in federal prison. It's a very extensive, long time. So how can we actually reduce recidivism? How can we reduce recidivism? That's the $100,000 question, and I have the answer. Don't go to jail. Don't go to jail. Seems simple enough. Seems simple enough. But in all actuality, when you come from communities that have been economically disadvantaged and or when you have an intergenerational and or transgenerational error of thinking and or pathology, it's not necessarily that easy. It's not necessarily that easy. So tonight, I have no idea where this, okay, here we go. So tonight we're going to be talking about 6 evidence-based components or steps to do so, how to reduce recidivism and how to strengthen reentry. First and foremost, we're going to be talking about step number 1, risk and needs assessment. Risk and needs assessment. Step number 2 are individual motivators. Step number 3, target the appropriate intervention. Step number 4, rewire the brain. I promise you, I only play a neurosurgeon on TV, so I won't necessarily rewire anybody's brain tonight. Step number 5, increase positive reinforcement. And last but not least, we'll be talking about step number 6. I promise you there's a step number 6. Ongoing support. Okay? So step number one. First and foremost, we need to stop spending all of our money on nickel and dimers. Nickel and dimers. This is how us cats in the street, we talk about these individuals who aren't necessarily in a high-risk category. These are the people who are chronic recidivists. These are the individuals who are actually what we consider low-level offenders. These are your drug offenders. These are the individuals who are actually getting caught boosting. These are the individuals who aren't necessarily, they don't necessarily pose a great public threat. They don't necessarily pose a great public threat, okay? So here are some examples of criminogenic needs that have been statistically proven to be associated with reoffending. Number one, individuals having an antisocial peer group. Antisocial peer group, okay? Number two, having a drug and or alcohol dependency. Number three, a lack of self-control. And number four, antisocial belief system. An antisocial belief system. So what statistics shows us and what the research shows us is that if we actually target these individuals with a criminogenic assessment, and if we actually divert our resources and channel it towards these individuals who are in that medium to high risk category, we can actually reduce recidivism, and we can actually keep these individuals on the street. Step number two, individual motivators. Just kind of like tickle my fancy when I talk about individual motivators, because we have to be able to assess the offenders for what motivates him or her on an individual basis. One of the things I always tell people, I'm always telling people, is that what is the Michael Jordan of what it is that you do? What is the Michael Jordan of what it is that you do? Everybody in this room has something that when you do it, you feel like you are the famed Chicago number 23 jersey when you do it. Whether you bake a cake, whether you drive a car, whether you commute. I saw somebody actually nod her head there, right? All of us have that Michael Jordan in us. And one of the things that I'm always telling individuals, anytime I see individuals who are criminal offenders, I'm always asking them, if you can actually facilitate a criminal enterprise, then you can facilitate a legitimate enterprise. Let me say that again. If you can facilitate a criminal enterprise, you can facilitate a legitimate enterprise. So I'm always telling individuals how to be somebody. That was for effect. I don't know how this went out. But I'm always telling individuals to be somebody that nobody else thought you can be. Be somebody that no one else ever thought that you can be. Step number three, target the appropriate intervention. The research says that we will do more harm than good by putting an offender in treatment programs that they don't need. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We will do more harm than good by putting offenders into treatment programs that they don't necessarily need. Step number four, rewiring the brain. Rewiring the brain. One of the things I talk about, this is a shameless plug, but one of the things that I talk about in my book, 9 Steps to Fall Up When You Trip Down, is you cannot change the situation with the same mind that created it. It's impossible. You cannot change a situation with the same mind that created it. So how do we rewire individuals' brains? First and foremost, we need to have cognitive behavioral strategies delivered by well-trained staff. Cognitive behavioral strategies delivered by well-trained staff. These skills are not just taught to the offender, but they are practiced. They are practiced. Practice makes what? I just want to make sure you're paying attention. Stay with me. Practice makes what? Practice makes perfect. Tip, it is nothing less than rewiring the brain through repetitive practice or pro-social behaviors. Step number 5, we have to increase positive reinforcement. I respond well personally to positive reinforcement. And for you individuals who are in the room who are supervised release officers, if you're involved in a criminal justice system, I can tell you this, you need a 4-to-1 ratio of positive reinforcement over sanctions. You need a 4-to-1 ratio of positive reinforcement over sanctions. And if you are tweeting us, if you are following us on Facebook, if you are actually on Instagram, you can actually borrow my hashtag, give a thug a hug. That summarizes this point. And step number 6, ongoing support. Ongoing support, ongoing support. Peer group is the number 1 leading factor as to whether or not the individual will reoffend, more than drugs. Peer groups is the number 1 factor as to if an individual is going to reoffend more than drugs. My grandmother used to say, show me who your friends are and I can tell you what you're doing. Show me who your friends are and I can tell you what you're doing. Peer groups is the number 1 factor that an individual is going to reoffend even more so than drugs. So these individuals are deeply entrenched in gang culture and have the greatest challenge fancy word, fancy psychological word, inter and or transgenerational pathology. So essentially what that means is that we have to be able to shift these individuals who have been entrenched in a culture of criminal thinking, criminal behaviors. We have to be able to shift that, and we have to be able to expose them to new opportunities. Business owners in the room, you have to be able to take these individuals and mentor them. These individuals, one of the things that Ruben talked about even with Glenn Martin, when he talks about how those who are closest to the problem are closest to the solution, but oftentimes we are furthest from resources and power. If you are in a room and you have resources and power, you have an obligation to actually take these individuals and be able to curate a space so that these individuals who have actually been entrenched in this culture don't necessarily go back out there and actually decimate your neighborhood and reoffend. So with that having been said, that's all, folks. And if you are tweeting this, if you are on Facebook, if you are on Instagram, you can use this hashtag, which is adopted by JLUSA, half by 2030, and you can also use my personal hashtag, We Inspire the number 4 real. Thanks.
That was extremely inspiring, and I love that. Give us like a hug. Definitely use that. Hashtag it and give us like a hug. Just be careful. Be careful in North Philly when you do that. So many times when we think about formerly incarcerated persons, the image in our mind is young black men, drug dealers, black women who are strung out, prostitutes. But the reality is formerly incarcerated people fall in all social categories and cross all racial lines. Our next speaker this evening, Jeffrey, is a person whom I have watched grow into the role of formerly incarcerated leadership. And I'm very proud to announce that he is a 2018 Just Leadership candidate. And for those of you who don't know what Just Leadership is, you need to know. It's the premier organization in this nation for elevating the leadership of formerly incarcerated people. Every year they choose fellows from across the country, and there's an intense training process. And they choose leaders. They aren't training leaders, they're choosing leaders, and then elevating their leadership. I am pleased to bring Jeff to the podium. Well, to the stage, not the podium. Thank you so much.
Wow. They say that you should never judge a book by its cover. Over the last 7 years, I've read 1,400 books. Over the last 7 years, and it wasn't until recently that I had any idea whatsoever what that saying really meant. I have a book, and I want to show you the cover. The cover of my book has a young man on it. He's wearing a blue suit. He's wearing a red tie, and he's standing in front of a beautiful house. And right next to this young man, who's carrying a trial bag, is a brand new car. Beautiful wife and beautiful daughter standing next to him. From the picture, this picture that's out in the suburbs of Philadelphia, this young man appears to have everything you could possibly want in life. Till you open this book up, till you open up the book and you turn that first page, that first sentence, and you begin to read. And you begin to read that the person on the front cover of the book is a convicted felon. This is my book. This is my story. I own it. It's who I am. I was a trial lawyer in Philadelphia for over 20 years, offices at 15th and Market Street. I made some horrible choices in my life that led to a federal indictment and 2 counts of wire fraud and 1 count of mail fraud. They say in life there are 2 days in your life that are the most important. The day you are born, and some people say the day you die. I disagree with the second one. The second most important day of your life is the day you figure out why you were born. And for me, I could tell you down to the second when that happened. It was March 12th, 2012. I was in a federal courtroom. I was a courtroom full of family, friends, colleagues, judges that I knew, clients. And in that courtroom, when the judge's gavel struck wood, my life changed forever. My life changed forever with a 5-year sentence in the federal penitentiary. And as I was handcuffed in that room, and my tie was taken off, and my shoelaces removed, and my belt taken off, and my wallet, and my wedding band, and I was marched into the back room in the holding cell to even some applause in the courtroom, I knew that 2 things had to happen. One is I needed to figure out why this was happening to me so that it never happened again. And the second thing was I needed to get everything I could and learn about what was about to happen so that maybe someday I could effectuate change. Maybe someday there was some good that was going to come out of this. I stood in a holding cell in the back of that courtroom, and I stood butt naked. And when I stood there, I was no longer Jeffrey Abramowitz. I became 617-64066. That's my federal ID number. It's who I was at that very moment and who I am today. It's who I am today. I figured it out. I spent some time at FDC Philadelphia, the Federal Detention Center, and I was stripped of everything at that very moment. Everything that ever belonged to me was gone. My profession, family, friends, money, wealth, everything you strive for. I figured it out. Because after I left Philadelphia, I went to USP Canaan, United States Penitentiary, up in tucked up in the mountains in Pennsylvania. It's probably the 4th highest secure facility in the entire country. Did I learn how to survive prison? Yeah, you learn real fast how to survive prison. But that's not what it was all about to me. To me, it was figuring out what could I do. So I went and arrived in USP Canaan, and you know what? I taught over 45 classes while I was there because they were the only classes being offered. I taught GED math and political science and current events and, gosh, anything I could teach just to keep people engaged and give them some shred of hope when they got out that they'd get something from the experience. I read and I wrote, and I learned lessons of humility. And I held my head high as I figured out what tolerance really meant. I did my time at USP Canaan, but I will tell you that, but for one fact, had I known what I was about to encounter in Philadelphia, I would have stayed in prison. Without question, I would have stayed in prison. Because on September 12th, 2015, a little over 2 years ago, I was discharged. And when I came back to Philadelphia, what I encountered in Philadelphia, no one should ever have to go through again, ever. I landed in North Philadelphia, at a halfway house in North Philadelphia. I landed in a place where the meals were often and frequently inedible. I landed in a place where finding a shower in the morning was a chore because for 300 guys in the facility, there may have been one working shower head. I landed in a place where finding toilet paper during the morning just to go to the bathroom was a challenge. I landed in a place where there were more drugs, illegal drugs, that flowed through that facility than some of the worst neighborhoods of Philadelphia. Getting a pass to go out and job search became like finding Willy Wonka's golden ticket. Not funny, true. The one fact that changed all of that was that I walked from CareerLink, Suburban Station, looking for a job and didn't have the tokens to get back to the halfway house, so I walked it. And I'm walking by Broad and Lehigh, and there's a little sign that says Community Learning Center. I walked in, and I saw a lady there, and I said, "Ma'am, I need a job. What can you do?" I taught GED math. I taught all these classes. I was a lawyer. I'm smart. I could do it. And she looked at me and whatever. I went back because I was persistent, and the next week, this wonderful lady said, you know what? The budget crisis in Pennsylvania is making me lay off all our people. I need a teacher right now. So I don't need to be paid. Just get me a job so I can get out of the halfway house. One condition. The one condition is that after I'm done, find a place that's appropriate for me. So one of the first teachers that I was teamed up with here tonight, sitting in the back, and this young lady taught with me GED math. Last January, I became a director at Community Learning Center in Philadelphia. I want you to imagine this, because Community Learning Center was the key for me as an adult literacy agency. It was the key because what ended up happening to me was they gave me the green light. They said, Mr. Abramowitz, what do you want to do? What's your passion? I said, it's reentry. They said, okay, what are you going to do about it? So they gave me the chance to go down to CareerLink and create a partnership. So now imagine this. Imagine a place where the 35,000 returning citizens in Philadelphia can go to, where they can walk in the door and they can be welcomed with a handshake. And then we could talk to them. And this reentry triage workshop, which takes place every single Tuesday, whole process, come down and see us. And we sit down with them. And you know what we tell them and we talk about? We talk about the hard issues. We talk about, how are you going to feed yourself? Where are you going to get meals from? Where do you get tokens to travel around the city of Philadelphia? What are you going to put on your resume? And more importantly, that elephant in the room, what do you say when you go in a job interview? What do you say when somebody says, ma'am, mister, where have you been for the last 5 years? The elephant in the room. We encourage transparency. We teach them how to get a Gmail account so they can file a job application today. We go out and we reach out to those felony-friendly employers that are not, they're not asking the question, where have you been? They're asking, can you work for me? Do you want to come work and be on time and work hard? Those are the things that happen. And for 3 hours, we sit down with each of these individuals. And we go through all those hard things. And we help them find that career pathway so that they can change the future. This workshop is incredible. Is it innovative? Is it different? It's common sense to me. It's what we need. We need this reentry workshop, just not at CareerLink, suburban station. We need it throughout Philadelphia. We need it every CareerLink. Maybe not. It just makes sense. It's smart. It's smart. So what happens now? The books that I have on my desk and the stories from all the people that have come to see me and come to see this workshop, these books are incredible because these books are written as they come down to us. And they're the stories of the black young man who is grown up in North Philadelphia. He's 26 years old, and all he's known all his life is dealing drugs. And then he comes into the workshop, and all of a sudden, he gets a job at a car wash. And he starts at the car wash, and then all of a sudden, not only is he washing cars, but his next step, he becomes a supervisor. And then he's a manager. And now he's managing the whole facility, and now he's managing 2 or 3. True story. And it's not just him that's affected and impacted by it. But now, you know what? The 2 children that he has, they're a little bit prouder when they go to school because dad's got a coat for them. And there's food on the table. And they see that their father can succeed. And a young Latino woman who comes to see us, who just by happenstance is still in a halfway house. And while she's still there, while she's in the halfway house, what happens is she gets a call. And she's got to come down for a job opportunity. And she gets the job. And it changes her life because now she can claim her children from DHS. This is what it's all about. This is what the program is all about. So I know I have to wrap up, and I'm going to tell you 2 things. First of all, that this is the first time since I've been out that my family's heard me speak publicly. The first time. I'll tell you this, and I share this because my daughter especially has been a rock in my life, and my brother and my mom are here, and they've been incredible, and they know I love them. But when you're incarcerated, it's not the person that's incarcerated that pays the real penalty. It's the family. It's everyone else that's impacted by it. Leave you with this story. When I came home, the very first Father's Day I came home, my daughter, who had just graduated college while I was out, when I arrived back home, said, "Dad, I want to take you somewhere on Father's Day." I said, "Okay. It's your Father's Day present." So I got in the car, and she drove me back to where I used to live. And we went back to the high school. I said, "What are we doing?" She says, "Wait, get out of the car." All right. I got out of the car, and we went to the back, and she opened up the trunk. And in the trunk of the car, she had her cap and gown, and she had the awards that she had from the graduation that I missed. And we went back on that football field, and we took the pictures as if it was graduation. I tell you that story because that's the next chapter. That's the next chapter that everybody should have and have a chance to experience. So promise me this. Next time you see an incarcerated person or somebody returning, open that darn book. Open the book and read it and see what they need. See how you can help them write their next story and the next chapter going forward. Thank you.
Started his company based on what his experiences were. Come on, he saw what was missing, he saw what was needed. He felt the pain and the hurt of not having his needs met, and was able to channel that into something that benefits other folks. And that's specifically what we talk about tonight, the power of folks with the label to channel their experiences into something transformative for other folks. So I want to personally say thank you to Jeffrey, because the other piece of it is he kind of shattered that stereotype. When we hear return to citizen or ex-convict or whatever label you want to use, we often we don't think of somebody who looks like that, right? And I think that if we can humanize these challenges and take the labels away, take the stereotypes away, and really deal with human beings, I think that will empower us to take a different approach.
When I first heard Jeff's story, that's your workplace. That's where your life is built. That's where your reputation is. But you're standing in front of a judge, and now you're being sentenced, and now you're going to the system. That's the power of that story.
Absolutely. So up next, and we want to actually invite you, as each of these speakers come up, feel free to tweet your thoughts about what they're saying, because we need to push this message out, and we need to push the Reentry Blueprint message out, and we really want to connect with the world through what we hear tonight. So, I'm sorry.
All the listeners on Word, and all those who are watching on WHYY, we want you to tweet also. My daughter just basically shook a tweet. Oh.
So up next is the Reentry Think Tank. Reentry Think Tank mission is transforming reentry stereotypes, which we just talked about, social services, policies, and the presenters will be Jim Baker, Deanna Bell, and Hiram Adams. Just a quick blurb about the think tank. Okay. The think tank is a group of formerly incarcerated individuals working to connect returning citizens with artists. You guys are appreciating the art that they've lent to us tonight. They work to connect returning citizens with artists and advocates to transform the stereotype social services platform that impact our lives and communities. Many of the think tank fellows are here this evening, but their presentation will be led by, again, Hiram, Deanna, and Jeff.
Here's the power of the think tank. What the project does is sends out a message to organizations that work in reentry. And they say, send us a person who you feel can represent the organization, who can immerse themselves in this work. And the folks that TCRC has sent to the think tank have been able to elevate their leadership to the next level. That's the importance, and that's why we should support the Reentry think tank. It's an amazing program, and I can't say enough good things about it.
So please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, the Reentry think tank.
Hello? We the people.
The other side of America.
The 7 million plus with criminal records.
We are human beings.
We deserve a chance to prove our worth.
We are not slaves to our past.
Let us be free.
Good evening. My name is Jay Adams. I've been a fellow with the Reentry Think Tank since the spring of 2017. The Reentry Think Tank connects returning citizens with artists and advocates, transforming the stereotyped social services and political platforms that impact our lives and communities. We believe that we, as people impacted by the criminal injustice system, are the experts that society needs to hear from most. Through the project, we consult and collaborate with service providers to transform how they support those in reentry. We create media campaigns to transform public perceptions about those in reentry. We work with community members across the city to advocate for policies that truly can keep us free. Today I will be speaking on the effects of stigma in reentry and what they do to combat it. So let me begin with the Oxford Dictionary's definition of stigma. A stigma is a mark of disgrace with a particular circumstance, quality, or person. In fact, the example of its use in the Oxford Dictionary is the stigma of having gone to prison will always be with me. In today's world, this is unacceptable and has to change. No social service or city program will truly support those coming home if we don't first destroy the stereotypes and eradicate the stigma around reentry, the reentry experience. This is why the think tank is working so diligently to change that narrative of reentry. Our artwork shares not only our stories, but our dreams and demands. It has been displayed in City Hall, the Federal Detention Center, churches, political office, and currently on display here. Many of these places have not included our voices, and by bringing our artwork here, it makes it possible and inevitable that our experiences, needs, dreams are all part of the conversation. We need to change people's opinions in their hearts and heads before meaningful policy changes will happen. When folks view our exhibits, you can physically see a transformation in their thought processes. People see us for who we are. At events such as this, where we get to speak to you directly, we can tell our stories and show you the great human beings that we are. When people see my criminal record, they judge me solely on that, but that is so far from who and what I am. I am first a man who is not asking or begging for your respect. I am demanding it. I am a father, a friend, an emerging leader in my community. I'm a community health worker with Philadelphia Fights Institute for Community Justice, and giving a lifetime of service to the communities that I lived in. No one knows or seems to care what traumas or stressors may have led to an individual doing what they may have done, but our artwork, exhibits, and personal stories help to transform the stigma we face. So with that said, I just hope that we can finally get into the same book. Then we can find the same page together and remove the blindfold off Lady Justice. So she needs to finally look at situations before her to truly be just. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Deanna Bell, and I've been a member of the Reentry Think Tank since January of 2017. Today I'll be talking about how we partner and collaborate with social service providers to help make their work more passionate, more creative, and more client-centered. I chose to speak about this tonight because in my own reentry journey, so many things were not available to me. I had no one to go to help stabilize me and my children. Unfortunately, when I was referred to social service agencies, they were not very helpful because they didn't understand what I was going through. And therefore their steps were not realistic. We help service providers see their clients as human beings so that they can better understand what they are facing and what they are capable of. Who better to design and transform social services than those who have used social services before? We have lived these experiences. Who better than us? This spring, the think tank partnered with the city's public defender's office, the Defenders Association of Philadelphia, to create the Resume of Freedom. For the project, we created a series of questions that we wished our lawyers had asked us before representing us. The responses to the questions we developed help tell the true story of those being defended, not just what it says on their criminal charges. This project not only helps lawyers build stronger cases, but builds trust between clients and lawyers. After developing the questions into a publication, we went to the defender's waiting room. We greeted the individuals coming in to meet with their lawyers, and we worked with the clients to fill out the Resume for Freedom, which was then given to their lawyers. From putting up positive artwork throughout the space that tell the stories of those like ourselves who are in reentry and are succeeding. These will help encourage, support, and show people that they are not alone, and they can do it too. We are also working on how the clients and riders are greeted and led throughout the whole process to ensure their needs are met in ways that inspire and support them as much as possible. Throughout these projects, we are filling the much-needed role of peer mentors. All social service providers could be supporting peer mentors to work with their clients and others in reentry to help transform what they do, how they do it, and who makes it happen. When I get to be seen as an expert or a consultant with important ideas, it makes me feel like I have a second chance to leave my mark in the world by helping people have a successful journey. I have been there, and I wouldn't want anyone else to go through what I had to go through when returning to the community. Everyone should feel like someone cares, and I'll be there for all those who don't have someone to check in on them and make sure that they remain free. I want people to remember that as long as we continue to pull together, like we've done with the Defenders Association of Philadelphia and RISE, we will significantly cut down on the amount of people who will return to prison, because we will support each other in more empathetic and honest ways. As long as we have each other to fall back on, we will beat the statistics, and we will make our city the city of brotherly love that we're known for. I am my brother and my sister's keeper, and I refuse to have it any other way.
Thank you for inviting me. Philly, you ain't telling us one more time. My name is Jim Baker, the other Jim Baker. I have been a fellow active member of the Philadelphia Reentry Think Tank, and I'm a representative and a peer mentor to the Carceral Center community at the University of Penn. And I'm a poster child for CCP, Community College of Philadelphia, and I'm on track to graduate in May. I've been a fellow active member of the Philadelphia Reentry Think Tank since its inception back in October of 2016. For me, there is one word which encouraging me to stay free while trying to free others, encouraging me to continue this pathway to success, as Jill Scott so eloquently put it, living my life like it's gold. I gained the momentum to become a healthy network myself, and encouraging me to believe that there are others like myself who ascribe and aspire to valuable assets that we are willing to. It is as awesome as it is economic, social, and political challenges we all face as returning citizens. The think tank has enabled our voices to be amplified as our issues become magnified illustrations to allow society to see we as a people should not even be neglected nor negated. Our stories are heard and realized in boardrooms that ratify policies and involve us, but never include us in those discussions. Through our experiences, don't come by way of books, television, or movies. We are not just clients. We are experts who live and lead every day of our lives. Through a partnership with the Reentry Coalition, we plan to share and deliver the RBR, which is the rights for the Reentry Bill of Rights, to bureaucrats, aristocrats, philanthropists, and advocates, locally and statewide within and alongside the reentry sector, to advocate for a more just, whole, and equitable Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. We believe that it's important and imperative that people who live the experiences are helping to shape and push policies because we best understand the plight of our dilemma and the demise of our discouragement. We don't always need help, but it would help if we are not hindered. People in power, read the RBR. I would hope that you would abandon apathy and embrace an empathy to denounce injustice at every level of bureaucracy. So in closing, I am no longer EC0798. I am Jim Baker, a father, the other Jim Baker.
Thank you. I hope you remember that what we've done together, every organization in the city could be doing with their clients and community. That other cities could and should have their own think tanks. The world is wrong about us.
We've already come so far.
We are learning to forgive ourselves, and so should you.
We make the difference in the lives of others.
But we need a chance to prove our worth.
That we are powerful.
Thank you.
I'm glad you clarified the other Jim Baker, because I was sitting there thinking, like, wait a minute. But give him another hand, guys. Really appreciate it. So our next speaker will be a gentleman that you all are familiar with. You've probably seen his face and heard his name, or have had some level of engagement with him at some point if you have anything to do with reentry in this city. So without further ado, the ACLU's Deputy Director for the Campaign for Smart Justice, Mr. Bill Kyle.
Hi, Billy. My 13-year-old daughter couldn't be here with us, and I said I would give her a shout out. Everybody can turn to the camera and say, "Hi, Billy." Hi, Billy. Oh, she's so embarrassed. In 1994, I pled no contest to charges of robbery, kidnapping, criminal conspiracy, in violation of the Uniform Firearms Act. I served 6.5 years in Pennsylvania state prisons. Today, as Ruben indicated, I am currently one of 2 deputy directors at the National ACLU, where we are leading an effort which is the largest campaign in the 97-year history of the ACLU to reduce our nation's jails and prison populations in half, while combating racial disparities in the criminal justice system. I'm a board member of Community Legal Services, Philadelphia Legal Assistance, and the Defenders Association of Philadelphia. So, the city of Philadelphia is in search of an evidence-based model for hiring people who have been in conflict with the criminal justice system. An evidence-based model. Evidence-based. Evidence. I'm going to offer you that some evidence that when you hire the people who are closest to the problem, that are also closest to the solution, but typically furthest from the resources and power, that the outcomes are unprecedented. The methods are innovative. And it's merely because individuals who have served time in our nation's jails and prisons have become experts at innovation, because they have to endure at least 50,000 different collateral consequences upon their release. So here's some evidence. My first task with the ACLU was to return back to the city of Philadelphia and be the national representation for the organization's first ever national GOTV voter education effort in the country. It is our goal and objective to do 10 GOTV races that target the worst prosecutors in our nation. Then we are going to file 10 pieces of legislation. Then we are also going to engage in 10 pieces of litigation. And so they charged me with coming back to my home city and implementing this brand new concept. Yeah, that's exactly what I do. So, under the leadership of Reggie Shuford, the executive director, and the workhorse Sarah Mullen, we began to brainstorm and think about how we could get ACLU members to actually get off of their couches and go out and elect a district attorney that represented smart justice values. So, we hired someone who actually has served time in our nation's jails and prisons, who's living with a criminal record, to be the campaign director. And then that individual hired some people to serve as managers and supervisors of the campaign, 3 out of 4 of which were individuals who were living with arrests and convictions. And then we really pressed it. We really pressed it. And then we hired 51 canvassers to knock on the doors of 11,000 ACLU members and encourage them to get out and go and vote for a candidate that represented smart justice values. 47 out of those 51 individuals had served time in Pennsylvania state's prisons and jails. The outcome, it's a recent outcome. I think all of you in this room are vaguely familiar with it. Led to one of the largest voter turnouts in the district attorney's race in our city's history. In our history. It's a little innovative. But you know why it happened? Because someone hired us. Because Udi Ofer of the ACLU hired Bill Cobb. And then Sarah, Bill Cobb, and Reggie hired me. And then Nick hired some of the individuals who are in this room. And these are the sorts of outcomes that our leadership produce when we're not discriminated against. So we're searching for evidence-based models while ignoring the evidence of the outcomes that we consistently produce when we're provided with exceptional opportunities and we produce exceptional outcomes. And maybe that doesn't land on you well. Maybe, I don't know, I'm extraordinary. Not. Just a person who's been given extraordinary opportunities. Right? But then you've heard other people talk about Glenn Martin in New York City, who's raising millions of dollars a year from some of our country's most notable philanthropists to run a campaign to train other leaders to bump up their leadership. So all across the country, formerly incarcerated leaders are coming into New York for 1 year of intense training. And then we're doing emerging leaders training, where it's helping us to identify other formerly incarcerated people and giving them a glimpse of what their life would look like if they connected to the network, if they committed to the training, and if they doubled down on their advocacy efforts. Maybe Glenn's extraordinary thing is an outlier and not as exceptional. Maybe he was just provided with exceptional opportunities. So how do we answer for Khalil Cumberbatch, who's leading at the Fortune Society? Or Ron Day, who's leading at the Fortune Society? Or Teresa and Lauren, who are in Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, and who are entrepreneurs and using tech to fix reentry problems? How do we account for John Dye's success in Philadelphia? Or Hassan Freeman's success in Philadelphia? Or Ruben Jones' success in Philadelphia? All of these people are being provided with extraordinary opportunities and producing extraordinary outcomes. And so while we're searching for evidence-based models, I ask each and every one of you in the room to search your heart and your mind and to think about whether or not you're discriminating against people based upon them being in conflict with the criminal justice system. Take a look at your institution. Take a look at your business. Take a look at your organization. And specifically, if you are doing work that aims to benefit us or improve our quality of life, hire us to lead those efforts. Imagine an LGBTQIA being led by an old white man. No offense to any old white men. It makes people laugh. However, right, in the city of Philadelphia and across the country, we have all of these people who have not been in conflict with the criminal justice system that are trying to analyze our lives, determine what our problems are, determine what quality of life we should have, and then aiming to implement solutions that we are supposed to incorporate to produce the outcomes that we are possible, that we are capable of producing, if we're only provided with the exceptional opportunity to lead. Hire us. Don't ask us to leverage our voice. Earlier, people said Michelle was great, and she said she wants the voices of directly impacted people to be centered. Well, I'm asking that the leadership and the voices of directly impacted people be centered, specifically when it comes to decarceration work, when it comes to criminal justice reform work, when it comes to policy, when it comes to advocacy, when it comes to anything that has to do about us. No more conversations about us without us. We will not resolve reentry in the city of Philadelphia until the people who are experts, who have been in front of a judge getting a bail, who have been in front of a magistrate getting a bail, who have served times in our county and our state prisons, who have sat in front of social workers and had their needs assessed, until those individuals who are fully capable, who are as educated as anyone else in the room. I love that other people indicated that there was such a diverse group of people who have now been in conflict with the criminal justice system. We come in all shapes, sizes, colors, background, education levels. It's this pervasive culture of discrimination that is preventing us from hiring the best people to do the job every single time. And that's what we're asking for. I am not asking for you to make an exception. I am not asking you for you to make a handout. I am asking that when you go through your recruiting process and you've invested that time and money in identifying the best talent, and then you've interviewed a group of people, that whoever rises to the top after those processes be the individual that you hire, and that you not use a criminal background investigation to make a hiring determination. I can tell you that those reports are fundamentally flawed, but I can also tell you is that I am not a robber, I am not a kidnapper, I am not a conspirer, and I don't carry illegal weapons. I had all of you wave to my daughter so that you would connect to me on a very personal level. She's 13. She admires and she loves and she respects her dad. I am a husband. I am a mentor. I'm a leader at the ACLU National Office. Yeah, I believe in Hebrew. You can that. But that's what happens when we don't put people into buckets and then exclude them and then marginalize them and not recognize that we have all the talent that we need in order to produce the outcomes we desire. If we want to fix reentry in the city of Philadelphia, we must center the leadership and the voices of people who have been in conflict with the criminal justice system. That is my solution. Thank you.
Right. How you guys doing? Feeling good? Okay, couple of announcements. We're hearing a lot of really, really powerful stuff. There is going to be an opportunity for you all to ask questions of these folks who are coming up here. After all the presentations, there's going to be an audience Q&A hosted by Solomon Jones of Praise 107.9. There's a lot of food that I'm sorry we didn't have a chance to get out before you all got in here. So I also hope that you'll stay afterwards and discuss and partake in the food. So we're going to take a brief sort of pause from the presentations, watch another short video. So a couple of weeks ago, we had something called a hackathon, which is a time when you bring together technologists, coders, graphic designers, with people who have some sort of expertise in subject matter to design some technology. So we brought together about 35 journalists, coders, designers, and formerly incarcerated people to see what they could do in a day to sort of push things forward on the issue of reentry in the city of Philadelphia. And this video, thanks to PhillyCAM, is what we came up with. One of the goals of the project is to go a little bit beyond sort of the traditional journalism, not just reporting, not just doing stories on this issue, but really kind of getting engaged with the community and finding other ways to think outside the box a bit of how to, how to kind of move the needle on this issue in Philadelphia.
So with Go for Philly, we see a lot of project ideas come in and kind of stop at the idea stage, and a lot of these events we try to focus around the idea of design thinking workshops and to facilitate the ideation going from just an idea into an actual solidified list of tasks that people can work on and projects that can move forward. And what's great about these events is that people are working together with the subject matter experts. We have the technologists in the room, the people like developing as a collective.
We're working on connecting mentors with mentees. So mentees have recently re-entered society, help them find mentors in their field of interest. So if someone is interested in computers, help them find a mentor who can help out with the computers, or cooking, landscaping, really application specific. One mentor can't be everything to everyone or everything to one person even. So really trying to find overlapping interests to help connect people.
We're going to be using Slack as the communications platform that lets the mentors and mentees connect one-on-ones. We have a jobs channel where people can post and share jobs that are friendly to people that are re-entering, volunteer opportunities. So if someone can't find a job, they still need something on the resume. Volunteering is a great way to help them do that.
So our project is kind of a website or an application to serve as kind of a central hub for those re-entering the community, because when they come out, there's a lot of information that's available, but it's kind of spread everywhere. So if someone needs help with something, they may not know where to look. So the goal of our project is to kind of be that first stop for people that don't know what they want or have something in mind and don't know what steps to take after that.
We are the Help for Text, or Help by Text group, and our whole concept here is just keeping it simple. That was our mantra from the very start. Now, the first thing that we thought about is, as a citizen, returning citizen, coming out of prison, that they need quick and easy access to information, and we have the same thought. The question is, how do you get that access? So the idea here we had was to just utilize simple technology, keep it simple, to get access, to get basic resources into the hands of people coming out of prison.
We were interested in connecting individuals who are maybe facing barriers to access because of lack of access to technology. So somebody who might not have a smartphone, might not have access or knowledge of how to use a laptop or a desktop computer. So we're looking at a SMS, text-based service to connect those folks with, various resources.
And the concept that we come up with is to essentially fortify families a reentry survival tool. When it comes to families, there are families being able to help their loved ones who are behind the walls. Some of the problems and challenges are economic hardship when a person is incarcerated. These are things that we already know. Family dynamics may change because of incarceration. Emotional well-being, specifically with children, and then legal issues. So in the development of the conceptualization of our concept, we wanted to keep it as simple as possible and make it as user-friendly as possible for the family member. And when we say family, we're using that in a broad sense. We have domains here. A person visited the site, we know they come to the site for a reason. And particularly in this case, the reason would be what we consist of several different domains or areas of need that an individual may have to accomplish to successfully reintegrate back to society.
I love the ideas that were presented. I love the energy that was presented. I love the collaborative spirit that was presented. I love the vision and the trajectory of where we're going with reentry in Philadelphia. So I took my hat and give each team kudos just for what you brought to the table. We look forward to seeing each one of these platforms reach the public in a useful way. If there's a way to kind of pull together, I think that would be great. But other than that, I think that everyone did a great job. And I was really impressed, so thank you all.
I love the innovation of that. And that's what it takes. Innovation to move this entire project forward. I can't say enough about Just Leadership. And I'm extremely proud to be a Just Leadership 2016 fellow. Our next speaker, Deanna Hoskins, I met her during our leadership elevation process. And in Just Leadership, we have this thing we do very early on in the training process, and it's called crafting a message. And you have like 2 minutes to almost give like a elevator speech. And what they said is, make your first part dynamic. Grab the attention of your listener. And Deanna said, I'll never forget it, in describing her former life before she became who she is now. I was standing at the check cashing place, trying to cash a bad check so I could buy some crack when my water broke. And I was like, it just blew my dreads up. Seriously. And she began to describe her transformation from a person who was addicted to crack to a person who stood in front of a judge and asked for a last chance, and he gave her that last chance. And she went from that to a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. And then she rose to become the Reentry Director of the entire city of Cincinnati, where she brought such innovative programs that involved the whole family, so that they were not just serving a person coming out of jail, they were treating the entire family who was suffering from the effects of mass incarceration. And from that success, she was targeted to go to Washington, D.C., and she now works in Washington, and she's in charge of writing the funding grants for the Justice Department. It's an incredible transition, and it exemplifies what we're talking about when we say amplifying the voices of those who were formerly incarcerated, who have been an intimate part of this problem, and now have a solution. Without further ado, Ms. Darrell.
Individuals, subject matter experts, serving our community after serving our time. When we talk about reentry, we've been doing this since 1988. And it started with the juvenile justice system and the federal government focusing resources on juvenile justice. During the crack epidemic of the 90s, nothing was done at the federal government level, and states, being followers as they are, had nothing to follow. It was not until 2000 that the federal government said the crack epidemic produced Serious Offenders Violent Initiative. Y'all follow me? Then in 2004, it became Prisoner Reentry Initiative, but it focused on faith-based and community programs. Then in 2007, they said they need a second chance. So we've been dealing with the second chance, and we're coming up on the 10-year anniversary. So I'm here to say for 33 years, we ain't got nothing done. Because for 33 years, people have been trying to fix us instead of getting out the way to let us fix the system we destroyed. So it's not until we allow individuals who have the expertise to produce the results we're looking for. So one of the things in my job, what I always say, programs are great, and I love programs. We should fund programs. So programs have a capacity. I can give you $1 million, and you service 200 people returning to Philadelphia. But over 3,000 return a year, right? So only 200 get the benefit of the program and the funding? So I'm going to push back, because that's what I do. Programs help, but policies make a difference. Yeah. We can impact the entire state or the entire city of people coming back by changing the policies. So one of the things that I got into advocating for myself, every time I got turned down for a job, show me the policy. Just show me, and people will say, the what? The written document that outlines your hiring policy that says a person with a felony conviction can't work here. What I immediately found out, half of them ain't no policies, it's just the person who's sitting and making the decisions that day and how they felt. So I could no longer I could not hold people accountable because there wasn't a written document. So I started advocating and I started researching. Another policy that blows me away is around housing. People all say, well, the federal government. Federal government bars 2 people from public housing and public funds. Lifetime sex offender and a person who was manufacturing methamphetamine while living in their property. All the other policies are your local housing authority and their board implementing. It doesn't take an act of Congress to change the barriers right here in Philly. Another policy that's the biggest across the country, and I argue this all the time, child support. A man gets sentenced to prison, his child support continues to rise, he returns to the community with an arrears that he can't afford, he needs to get a job, he has a felony conviction, he can't get a job. I'm going to tell you, in order to stay out of jail, I'm not going to tell you I might not hustle again. So what we do, we push people back into a survival mode of crime just because we don't hold our leadership accountable. There's a federal rule that says a person who's sentenced to prison, child support can automatically be dropped to zero while they serve their time. But your local child support will tell you the federal don't like it. Yes, they do. Who helps get those initiatives pushed is your local reentry director, your mayor's office. I always tell people mayor's office should not run programs. Mayor's office should push policy. They should hold the leaders of the city accountable for the policies that are in place. Another policy is the food stamp policy, where some states have said, the federal government said you can't give food stamps if you're convicted of a drug offense. That's true, but we also said here's a waiver if you don't want your state to have this policy. Most governors didn't sign on. So what I'm saying today is I need to challenge leadership. Excuses are off the table. 70 million people with a criminal background. There aren't 70 million mayors who come through Philly. There aren't 70 million city council members who come through Philly. But there are more formerly incarcerated individuals coming through Philly with the expertise of trying to solve the issue that we're trying to solve today. So what I want to say again, one more time, subject matter experts serving our community after we served our time. If people really want to assist and solve this problem in leadership, I ask you today, what is the next city council meeting going to talk about? Are we going to really have this conversation? Can we be bold enough to talk about the pink elephant in the room? So, of course, we always hear everybody's story and where they've been and where they come. And I don't need to relive my story. I'll just say my story goes like this, from the crack house to the White House. And as part of that, through my expertise, not because of my expertise of I went and got a degree in policy, I got a degree in social work, and I got a degree in criminal justice. But I got those degrees initially because I wanted to help people who were in situations like me, who were in that same hopeless state. And I realized that if you have the ability to give a person hope, you have the ability to change their lives. Reentry is not about me just doing something different. Reentry is about transformation. And when something transforms, there is no going back. A butterfly can never go back to a caterpillar. When you transform into your state that you're supposed to be, there is no going back. We have not built an environment that's conducive for safe transformation. Humans are creatures of habit. We will take a known hell over an unknown heaven just because we know what hell brings. Did y'all get that? We are creatures of habit. We will take a known hell over an unknown heaven just because we know what hell is going to bring. And individuals who have been incarcerated are no different from me. The one thing that every human being, I don't care if you're formerly incarcerated, ain't never been to jail, got a PhD, the president of the community college, the superintendent of the prison, city council, or DA. We all have the same issue. Fear of change. Fear of change. You're asking me to change from an environment I'm comfortable with to something you're promising me when the system ain't never produced nothing productive for me. But it's not until the system starts to look like me or people who've been through what I've been through that I start to build the trust and the willingness to feel safe to change. So Philly, as I leave the stage, I want to ask you a couple of things. How do you reimagine reentry? Because second chance, I need as many chances as I can take. So if we reimagine reentry and the funding is no longer focused on programs, but the funding is focused on policy change, are we willing to do something different? How do we reimagine reentry? You reimagine reentry by allowing the leadership in this city who has represented the chaos we're trying to start, those closest to the problem are closest to the solution, but further from resource and power. But you all have the power to put them in position. No successful movement has ever been successful until those most oppressed by that situation rise up into leadership and change.
Okay, we're coming to the end. So you've seen these two men up here on stage throughout the night. Darrell, Ruben Jones. John is the founder and executive director of the Center for Returning Citizens in Philadelphia. He's the co-founder of the Black Party, which is the first political pact founded by and for formerly incarcerated individuals in the United States. Ruben Jones is a community activist and social justice advocate who serves as executive director of Frontline Dads, where he provides transitional services to men and women returning from incarceration, mentoring for at-risk youth, and social justice advocacy. I have had the unbelievable privilege to work with these two men for the last, 2 months we've been at this, putting together this event. And they are two of the most intelligent and committed people I've ever met in my life. So, without further ado,
I'm having a little bit of a technical issue, so bear with me. No, this is good. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. So we heard a lot of speakers tonight. I want you to trust me for this part of the journey. Close your eyes for me.
Everybody, close your eyes.
I want you to imagine a Philadelphia where returning citizens' voices and expertise is valued and is utilized to not only develop, but to implement reentry programs. I want you to envision a Philadelphia where no longer are the people closer to the problem excluded from the resources and the power needed to create viable solutions.
I want you to imagine a Philadelphia where in the circles of power, at the tables where decisions are made, formerly incarcerated people are sitting there, discoursing, discussing, being listened to, and helping to frame and form the policies that affect our everyday lives.
I want you to imagine a Philadelphia in which people are given second, third, 15, and 35 chances to get it right because they're viewed as human beings and not as AS0747. I want you to imagine a Philadelphia where power is shared equally amongst all its citizens and the full rights and privileges of citizenship is extended to every resident in this city.
I want you to imagine a Philadelphia where the resources are shared with the grassroots organizations that are doing the real work in the community. So that when folks come home and they come to an office and they don't have a trans pass to find a job, or they don't have clothing, or they don't have the tools necessary to qualify for a position, that these grassroots organizations are able to give them a trans pass, write them a check, help them to move forward with the small things in their life that are so essential, because without these small things, their transition cannot move forward.
I want you to imagine Philadelphia where people have more value than properties. Where human lives take front and center in every decision-making process that we engage in, and we trust, value, and respect those people living next door that we normally will not even shake a hand.
Imagine a Philadelphia where our experience is truly valued, so that we aren't just called when there's a panel discussion, or there's a speech to be made, or there's a situation where we need to have a returning citizen up front to validate a program. Imagine a Philadelphia where our voices are truly respected and we are the center of reentry.
Imagine a Philadelphia where the mayor co-governs with returned citizens, or a district attorney creates an office specifically to address the needs of the people that they genuinely send away to prison. Imagine if returning citizens were allowed to mentor the men and women incarcerated on our state road and fought for their rights and their return and their inclusion in our society. Imagine that.
Imagine a Philadelphia where returning citizens are sent out into the neighborhoods to reduce violence, to mentor and to create conflict resolution situations among the young men in our society who are propagating this violence. The same young men who call us OGs, who respect us because we did our time. We never snitched. We came home and we are forces in the community. Imagine a drastic drop in violence based upon that solid mentorship.
Imagine, if you will, returned citizens enjoying economic empowerment, political empowerment, and social empowerment. What would Philadelphia look like? Feel free to open your eyes. My name is Ruben Jones. I'm a formerly incarcerated person. I spent 15 years in state prison for robbery and aggravated assault. I was released in 2002 and have been home ever since, fighting for this reentry movement, fighting for social justice issues. My journey has taken me from sitting in a prison cell wondering when would I be released, if I would be released, to going home and eating beans out of the can, living on peanut butter and jelly, and bushel vegetarian beans. Took me to applying for a job that I was turned down for, cleaning porta potties, because I had a criminal record. But it also took me to higher education, where I obtained a master's degree. It also took me to receive the Presidential Service Award from President Barack Obama. It also took me to Just Leadership, where Glenn Martin has invested in the leadership of returning citizens in the most profound way I've ever experienced. So I'm here today to help you imagine how you can invest in the people in this city to help transform it into the most progressive, restorative justice practice city in the country. And I believe we have the power to do that. Do you? Do you?
My name is Darrell, and I spent 25 years in the federal system. 2 separate sentences. The first sentence, I did 7.5 on 16, and the last sentence I did 18 flat on 20. I came home in 2009 and began to further my education. I achieved my bachelor's degree, I worked toward my master's, and I founded the Center for Returning Citizens because I saw a real lack of respect for formerly incarcerated people in the current system. During my incarceration, I was blessed to come under the mentorship of Dr. Matula Shakur, the stepfather of Tupac Shakur, who created a circle of consciousness so that any young man or older guys, anyone who wanted to transform their lives had a foundation, had a vehicle, had a path, had a journey. And all of the things that I have done since I came home in 2009, the roots lie in the work that I did behind the wall. Because that's where the real work is done. That's where so many lifers and long-time prisoners are mentoring people and sending them out into society to succeed, and we do not give enough credit for that. And we do not even recognize that work that is being done.
Absolutely. I spent my 15 years with Cam Riley outside, where we wrote a book. We created a culture awareness program. We created a Black History program. We created a creative writing program. We did a exchange program with our local college. This is the work that we've been doing for 30 years. We didn't just start because, with all due respect, Michelle Alexander wrote a book. We didn't start because Meek Mill's got a 2 to 4. This work has a history, and our expertise has a value. So when we bring our histories and expertise to the forefront to offer a solution, trust me, we know what works. Who's better to tell you how to stay out of prison than 4 men who stay out of prison? Right? I mean, you know, I'm not that great at math, but it makes sense to me. So, you know, what I want to say is we talk about 3 things: political empowerment, economic empowerment, and social empowerment. So I'll start with the economic empowerment through entrepreneurship. And I want to be, this is the part of my speech that the gloves come on. Reentry is a hustle. I'll say it again for those who didn't hear it in the back. Reentry is a hustle. We have governments, we have municipalities, we have mayors, we have district attorneys, we have a lot of political entities who've decided they know how to run reentry, right? And what they've decided is, let's put in the minimum resources for the maximum output. So even though since the 80s, violent crime has been on the decline in this country, prison industry has exploded. Again, I'm not a mathematician. I kind of barely squeak through, but does that make sense to you? Does it add up to you? So what we want to offer is, you know, most of the men and women who went to prison were hustlers too. I know I've done everything from sold flowers here. You don't believe it. Wash cars, right there, Joe Fraser's jump, Broadwood, cut grass, shovel snow, pack groceries at the supermarket. So ever since I was this high, I knew how to make a dollar or 15 cents. But we're talking about empowering folks who can't get a job. So we tell them, as Deanna said, you go home, if you don't pay your child support, we're going to lock you up. The trick of it is nobody wants to hire you. So what happens? The man who can't pay child support ends up back in jail, where guess what? He can't pay child support. Again, my math is a little fuzzy, but I'm working on it. So I want you to think about, what does it mean for a person to become an entrepreneur or a business owner? A returning citizen who spent years on the street perfecting his craft with those, street pharmaceutical sales. Entrepreneurship at its best. So we've designed a program called Change the Hustle. So it's a double-edged sword. Yeah, we talk about changing that hustle of reentry programming, and I love how you alluded to the fact that programs are not effective. They come, they go, they follow the trends, and we got to think more innovatively than that. So we've designed a program called Change the Hustle, where we teach men and women how to transfer those street skills to the business world. If you sell drugs on the corner, you know what it is to market your product. You know what it is to do market research. You know what it is distributing a product. You know what it is about managing people. You know how to brand. You know how to create a budget. It may have been used in the wrong field, but the skills are there, and we can teach you how to transfer it to the business world, how to write a business plan, how to create a board, how to get your business license, how to open up that corner store, the barber shop, or whatever. And we believe that when ex-offenders or returning citizens can start businesses, guess what? They'll hire other returning citizens. And that's how we reduce recidivism, because you can bet $1 to a donut if we can start 1,000 businesses in Philadelphia with returning citizens. They each hire 2 people. Help me with the math. How many people is that?
3,000.
Right? So you said 3,000 people return to Philadelphia every year? The defense rests.
With the sad reality is that we have been pitching Change the Hustle for several years and have not gotten the city of Philadelphia to buy into the concept. Why not? Is it because it's a concept that is projected by returning citizens? Does it have no value because we thought of it? Because we designed the curriculum? So we thought, how can we structure an economic system that works for returning citizens? And we came up with the concept of the village. We often talk about it takes a village to raise a child. But it may take a village to restructure the face of reentry. So in North Philadelphia, we're in the process of talking to hard money lenders, appraising buildings, working with the Commerce Department. We have a long-term relationship with the Architectural Department at Philadelphia University, and they've done an incredible amount of work, actually $60,000, $70,000 worth of work, to help us fashion the village, which is a vocational educational center to train returning citizens and also the young people in our community who are not going to college. Philadelphia may be a city of eds and meds, but many of our folks do not fit into that paradigm. They need to be trained vocationally. And we wish to invite the building trades into the vocational educational center so that after they complete their training as plumbers, electricians, sheetrockers, sheet metal workers, they can go into apprenticeships in unions and not just have a job, have a career. We want to create a farmer's market similar to the Reading Terminal in the heart of North Philadelphia, because we live in a food desert. And instead of having supermarkets, we have poppy stores. And because the economy of our communities are controlled by races other than ours, which means that our money flows out of our community, which means that our young people don't have locations where they can seek employment. We want to create housing opportunities, because as folks come out of incarceration, first they need housing. If your family lives in public housing in Philadelphia, you can't move them. So many times people are living in rooms while they're trying to help their family, and they have a doubly hard transition. We want to create art centers where music and art and dance are encouraged, because children of incarcerated parents and our young people who are at risk are not receiving this in the high school. All those programs are being cut back. We want to create a self-contained community where we are entrepreneurs, where we are the leaders, where we are the teachers, where we can not only nurture returning citizens coming back in the community, but help their families in holistic ways, because unless you help the families, you cannot help the returning citizens. And we want to create a model that can be replicated over the job.
This village is vitally important because let's just say you spend 15 years in prison, like somebody you all may know. And you come home and you've done all this personal development work and transformation, and then you return to North Philadelphia and it's besieged with guns, violence, and drugs. When you look around you and there's a bunch of abandoned buildings and vacant lots, when you look around, your unemployment is at an all-time high in your community. So what are you returning to? So we don't make the investment in the communities in which the village will by creating employment opportunities, by creating training opportunities, by creating vocational opportunities, and by serving the basic needs like a supermarket. This is our vision. And the overall vision will encompass years and years of preparation and development in order to really take the city to the front of transformation. But we believe that if we start now, right? You know how you let that laundry pile up? You should have did a couple days ago. Now you got a big bin full of laundry. We want to empty the basket now. And we want to begin to reinvest in our communities and our men and women return home, which will then lead to political power. They'll be more engaged with the political process. It's hard for people to entertain or be involved when, you know what Maslow said, right? Those basic needs got to be met before you can even think about pursuing
or, you know, high levels of resistance. So we got to be able to provide those basic needs of shelter, food, water, clothing, safety, and security. And we aren't providing. Reentry is not providing that right now. We're shuffling people through, we're counting numbers, we're rubber stamping a certificate, and we're saying be on your way with no real opportunities once you walk out the door. And in photo ops, not a lot of opportunity. And we want to change that.
So how can we approach the political side? Our idea was to form the Block Party, which stands for Build, Lobby, Organize, Campaign. Because in the city of Philadelphia, there are over 300,000 returning citizens. So our question is, why aren't we running the city? If there's 300,000 people who have the same shared background, the same hopes and dreams, the same aspirations, why aren't they viewing their situation as one that needs to be moved forward together? Yes, darkness descends.
I thought that was the high side. Party's over.
And the Block Party, the power of returning citizens joining forces with community activists, LGBTQ community, ordinary citizens, the city government, was evidenced by the election of Larry Krasner for district attorney. When the Block Party and Reclaim Philadelphia knocked on 60,000 doors in North Philly and in West Philadelphia and fundamentally changed how criminal justice is going to be administered in the city of Philadelphia. And that's an astounding victory. It's a victory we have to acknowledge. Philadelphia has long been the bastion of the Frank Rizzo, Lynn Abrahams, Seth Williams mentality of criminal justice. We now have a chance to be leaders in holistic criminal justice, and that's a very exciting prospect.
So that's our vision. Will you join us? Well, thank you, Mr. Rogers. The future is on the table. Won't you be mine? Will you be mine? Thank you.
Now we're going to bring our chairs up, and it's your turn to ask us questions.
Good evening, everybody. While our speakers put their chairs up, I'm going to hurry up and say a little bit. My name is Solomon Jones of Praise 107.9 FM, and I am happy to be here with my family from WURD 900 AM and 96.1 FM, where I started my radio career. And so we are going to take questions from the audience. There are microphones here and here. Please line up at the microphones. We have until 8:30. What I will ask is that you will ask questions, right? And not make long speeches. Because we want everybody to, I'm just going to keep it 100. Because I'm from Philadelphia and I know how this thing goes, right? So we are going to ask that you ask questions. And we are going to start with this gentleman right over here. What's your name, sir?
Of course not.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
I really didn't have a question, but in respect to what you said,
yes, go ahead, sir.
in respect to what was heard at the very beginning, a question was asked that if anyone was incarcerated, anything like that, for a minute, a second or two, stand up. And listening to all the speeches tonight, and this being a beginning, I think that y'all should ask us to step up there tonight, because we are the face of public safety as well as you are. And you talk about looking for the new levels of leadership. I think if anyone came in this room that was formerly incarcerated, that's sitting out here, they need to step up here just for a minute so that y'all can see that pool of leadership that you can pull from. Right in this room.
Yes, sir.
But I want you to invite everybody to step up.
Thank you, sir. Now, what I do want to say, Ruben, because I heard you say this in the beginning, because I was here, right? y'all asked for everybody who was a person who was a returning citizen to raise their hand, right? So we just wanted to make sure that everybody was recognized. If you want to come up, you can certainly do that. But we want to move on to the next question if that's it. Is that it? Okay. You can come up if you want. Okay.
No, but I'm saying it's a good idea. I just want to say one thing on the map as an idea, because y'all last point was very valid. 300,000, right? Looking at the prison, no ways in there, the JCs, the Brotherhood, and that, and getting the money right. If you ask for that from incarcerated people to give back to the community, that can be the nucleus of those resources. And then when they come home, say, hey, I bought into this. Then somewhere down the line, it could be a initial public offering, and you all that. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. I just want to say really quick, Hassan Freeman, who's not up here tonight, I wish he had an opportunity to talk about the firm, which is an opportunity for returning citizens to invest into a union that would then create opportunities for other returning citizens by building those businesses. He should have been on the panel, but if you have an opportunity, just kind of give him a quick 30 seconds about the firm.
He did a good job, y'all. The firm.
Okay, so does anybody else have a question? You come up to the mic, please. The mic is right here, man. And what I do want to say is, because I was sitting in the back just watching everything, kind of taking it in. And where's Jeffrey? Jeffrey, I was sitting behind your family, man. And I could tell that was your family because they were crying and they were smiling as you were speaking. And so I just want to give you a pat on the shoulder for that. Go ahead, man.
My question is, how much are we talking about re-entry to men and women who are currently in prison? Are they aware of all the things that are going to be available to them? I'm a newbie in terms of tutoring in a prison. But if I do anything, I hand them a piece of paper with the career link thing on. But is there a policy in the prisons where they are getting lots of encouragement about what it's going to be like when they get out?
Having worked for the Department of Corrections after serving in the Department of Corrections, working on a state and local and a federal level, every system is different in what they do, and it basically comes down to individuals who work. So one of the ways I like to describe the Department of Corrections is the prisons are normally out in the fields. In the local areas where they're located is the economic viability is the prison. So if you close the prison, and normally the prison staff don't look like the prison population. So there's a different culture there. So what an individual gets basically comes down to who their case manager is and the investment that the case manager has. But one of the things that I want to say is, there's a ceremony going in prison. You stand in front of a judge, the prosecutor doesn't look at you, he tells the judge why you should have this time. This ceremony happens, the judge hits the gavel. There is no ceremony when I come back to reinstate me as a citizen and lift me up. There is no ceremony. And I used to always get mad when people came home from prison and their family threw them a party, till I went and I needed that party. But I realize now that, especially in the African American community, is support. It recognizes that we're happy you're home, you're welcome back into the family. Because the system tears you down on the ceremony to sentence you, but the system don't lift you up when they release you.
And I think it's really important for us to look at how we can change the culture inside of prisons. Prisons could be think tanks, where persons for the first time in their life have a chance to slow down, really evaluate their life, and then there should be programs in place to assist that transformation. But many of those programs are self-created. We create the mechanisms for our own transformation because, frankly, the system doesn't care. We're there for punishment. We're not there for holistic transformation and for rehabilitation.
The one thing I want to ask the panelists, when you speak, please identify yourself so the radio audience can hear who you are. That's it.
Yeah, Jeffrey Brownwoods. I will tell you that right now in Philadelphia, we are going through an incredible period of sort of transformation when it comes to reentry. The city of Philadelphia, and I'm sorry she just walked out the door, but our new director of RISE, the Mayor's Reintegration Office, was here tonight, Cecily Bradford Jones, and she's becoming the captain of the ship in Philadelphia to sort of spearhead the change of reentry. And there are programs now, to answer Mary's question, there are programs now that are reaching inside the prison system, where the Department of Corrections now is giving people, this is where you need to go when you get out. These are the resources. And the Philadelphia Reentry Coalition is an amazing group of organizations throughout Philadelphia that all has joined together to pull their efforts and resources really to hone in on what people need. And I encourage you, if you're not a part of the Reentry Coalition, to go on their website, and there are some great resources and great resource manuals that you can check out if you need someone, if someone needs a meal or clothing, or to get back into school and education and get their GED. So I'd encourage you to check that out.
Go ahead, sir. Ask your question.
My name is Glenn Bergen from Full Abundance.
A little closer to the mic, sir.
Close enough?
Yes.
Okay, good. Glenn Bergen from Full Abundance. I just want to thank you for all the articles you've written and all the things that you've been working on. I just wanted to say that I would like you to help us at Full Abundance. I recently had a meeting with our HR director and said, you know, we have these openings, but I'd rather start looking somewhere else for candidates. And the question is where? And so I ask you to work with us on filling some of our positions, and that we have this commitment. The people that we serve often are reentry, and maybe we can hire them and not just look for that college graduate, or the college graduate that is also reentry. So I ask you to work with us on that. And I also thank you for ordering the food today from our kitchen at PCK, which is in a women's and children's shelter, where about 800 people have been trained over the last 15 years, of which probably about half have been re-entered. So thank you very much for all the work you're doing.
You're not going to your office door tomorrow morning. I want to thank you because I had a close relative who came through your program after coming out of prison, learned how to cook in that kitchen, got his catering license, just bought a house. He's doing quite well, so thank you. Thank you for the program.
Hi, good evening. My name is Arthur Hurst, and I work for PHMC. I'm a site director at John Barton High School, which is also my alma mater. And I just really want to ask about the Hustle Project, because a lot of the kids I come in contact with, I'm from Southwest Philadelphia as well. I caught a case when I was 16 years old, and almost a year ago, actually, I caught a case and I actually beat it. And the one charge that I got, I appealed it and I beat it. And now I'm going to focus on how I can have my wrongs righted. As a site director in a high school, I'll cover after-school programs, and the grant is focused on college and career readiness. I do a lot of unpacking before I ask kids about college, because I've come to find that the kids don't. They say, no, I don't want to go to college, no, I don't want to do work and things like that. But a lot of the young men do have a lot of ideas about entrepreneurship. So I want to know, one, how can I get them in contact with the Hustle Project and with you know, your organization, because they don't. Some of them don't have criminal background records, some of them do, and I just want to lead them in the right direction rather than say, oh, fill out this college application. If that's not what their heart is into, I want to give them more resources, and that's what I want to bring to the kids. And I also want to know if Ms. Dean, if I could, you know, follow you on Instagram or Facebook, or you know, some information about that as well. I appreciate everybody that came out here today, and I appreciate everybody in the audience that came out, because this is something that we need regularly. Because a lot of young men and women that come from my neighborhood in Southwest Philadelphia, I had a young man tell me on Monday that he doesn't care if he lives until 40, that he's 18 and he rents a room and he sells drugs to get by. And it breaks my heart, but I don't show it on my face when I speak to the kids, but it breaks my heart. And I just try to encourage them. But I know sometimes as a young black woman, like, they look at me and I see them when the climate control comes in, they respond better to other older black men, honestly. So I do a lot of talking, and the climate control comes in and like, yo, calm down, and they listen. So I want to give them the resources to connect to you all, whether they were incarcerated or not incarcerated. I just want to connect them.
Hustle Project.
So yeah, this is Ruben speaking. The first thing I'll say, they respond to the climate control management.
Go ahead, sir. What's your question?
Yes, my name is David Vindage. I teach in the journalism department at Temple. My question is about the vote. I know nationwide there's a big issue of people after they've left prison being able to vote. And what's the situation in Philadelphia? Are you individually lobbying for more access to voting and more power in voting blocks? I know it's a complicated question. So.
Actually, this is Bill Cobb from the ACLU. Actually, it's not a challenging question. People who have been in conflict with the criminal justice system have the right to vote in Pennsylvania. Quite frequently, people think that if you have been arrested or convicted, you don't, but in Pennsylvania, you do. In 33 states across the country, you do. In terms of whether or not we're organized or lobbying collectively, that is emerging through the creation of the Block Party and other efforts throughout the city of Philadelphia, the state of Pennsylvania, throughout the country, where we are trying to acquire political capital, understand how to leverage it, and then motivating and encouraging people to use that leverage to actually change policy or to actually change a political climate where a very progressive or a liberal individual can be elected in a respective state or race.
This is John Darrell from the listening audience. It's vitally important for formerly incarcerated people to exercise their right to vote, but it's also important for us to advocate. We go across the state and we speak in churches, universities, community centers. It's ordinary citizens who become educated about the reality of mass incarceration, about the reality of reentry, who need to lobby their legislators to create the laws necessary to create change. This is a joint venture. It's not just on returning citizens. We can be in the forefront of the struggle, but it has to be everyday citizens who see the reality and say, I can make a difference. I can make a change.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for those answers. Jane Von Bergen from the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Hi. My question, this is a solutions night, and so my question is, what is the role of a person who doesn't have a criminal background, who isn't from the community, who doesn't own a business, who doesn't have any political connections? What's the role for that person in providing solutions to this issue?
That's why she works at the Inquirer. You understand?
So one of the questions that we all need to ask ourselves is whether or not we should lead, follow, support, or get out of the way. And before you ask that question, you need to be in relationship with people who are leading this effort. And that's my answer, quite simple. Get in relationship with somebody who's in conflict with the criminal justice system or with somebody who's working with that constituency, and then ask yourself or ask them. Tell them what capacity you have. Tell them what you're passionate about. Tell them about the kind of change that you want. And then mesh those things and see if there's an opportunity for you to make a contribution that will advance the vision of those individuals who are working in that space or who are living with arrest and conviction.
This is John Darrell, TCRC. What's vitally important is to support the organizations that are doing the real work in the community. I can't say that enough. Support the organizations that are doing the real work in the community. And that means going on the tcrcphilly.org website, going on Frontline Dad's website, and financially supporting us. This work does not get done in a vacuum. Also, it's important to challenge our public officials. So many times we give them a straight pass. Yes, Philadelphia is a democratic city, but we have city council people who act like kings and queens over little kingdoms, and we don't challenge them to do the right thing. We have 40,000 vacant houses in the city of Philadelphia. That's housing for not just returning citizens and their families, but a huge homeless population. That's programs where returning citizens can be trained to renovate those houses. But instead of programs like that, Mayor Kenny's talking about an $85 million theme park over 95. That's insane. bring the money to the neighborhoods where it's going to do the most good and make sure they do it. And if they don't do it, go to my office.
So let me just add,
Go ahead, man.
Deanna Hoskins from the Department of Justice. So one of the things that I like to tell individuals when they say that I'm totally disconnected from the situation and the conversation is I ask you to have this conversation over Thanksgiving dinner with your family. Increase the awareness of what you've learned and what you're connected to in the community to bring the rest of those who are disconnected into the circle as well. That's a hard conversation to have, and that's my challenge to people who say, I'm not connected. Get connected, but bring your whole family along for the connection as well.
All right. So as
Can I
we
just add one quick thought to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just because it's a financial question too. So when we talk about reentry and incarceration, I had a conversation with Scott Charles yesterday, who said that on average it costs between $50,000 and $60,000 to treat a gunshot victim in this city, and we average over 1,200 incidents of gun violence a year. It goes unpaid. That's who pays it. The city picks up the tab. Every time somebody recidivates, guess who picks up that $42,000? Your tax dollars. So it's a deeper conversation. You may feel like you don't have any connection, but when I tell you that 1 out of 5 people in this city have a direct involvement with the criminal justice system, it has an impact on you because it touches your tax dollars. It takes money away from school. It takes money away from getting the pothole filled, right? So we have to understand our political power through what the economic impact is. And it's simple as picking up a phone call or tweeting out to your city councilman, yo, I don't agree with that. We need to redirect some of those resources back to my block. Let's make it that person.
All right.
How do we contact you to get involved? No address, no email.
Contact information.
www.frontline-org.
Right?
267-414-4764.
Okay. All right. So
We'll give you cards after.
we have to hurry up, and because now we're kind of getting to the end. What I do want to tell you is that if you are tweeting, and I encourage you to tweet, Reentry Blueprint is trending on Twitter in Philadelphia. Keep it trending. So you want to help that to happen, and you want to tweet something, take a picture of something, and just hashtag it Reentry Blueprint. Go ahead, ma'am.
Because we are photogenic, right?
My name's Suzanne. I'm visiting actually from Australia here for the Criminology Conference. And I'd like to first congratulate you for doing an amazing job in Philadelphia. I really hear the struggle in your voice, but trust me, believe me, now we have a lot of areas that I've been to, and especially our own country, so well done. But just listening to you, well, we all know that it's no secret that returning citizens to the community are in need of things like housing and employment and all of these support services, and they certainly do exist, whilst they might be hard to access. We know that they exist, but I just wanted to tap into something, and I think you might have talked about, sorry about my name, about hope, this idea of hope, which is a bit more latent, it's a bit sort of abstract than the tangible housing or the job that's a little bit more easy to see or feel. And I'm thinking, I can't imagine, I've never been incarcerated, but I imagine leaving a prison and coming back into the community is frightening. It's probably, there's a lot of unsurety, there's a lot of feelings of hopelessness, I would imagine. In that first 24 hours or that first week, so I'm getting right down to real grassroots practical level here, what would make a difference in your life in that time? Is it something as simple as someone meeting you at the gate and giving you a hug and saying, welcome back? Or saying, let's go for a meal, like, really glad to have you back, your time's done, put it behind you, what can we do now? And just befriending you? Or, I don't know the answer, but can you tell me?
What's the thing that would help them most as soon as they get out?
Yeah.
Is that your question?
Yeah, really practical. Not the housing and the employment, the long-term stuff, but the right now, what would really make a difference in your life and give you hope in that moment?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, sir.
Lewis Reed here. So one of the things that I actually talked about in the six steps component was that support, right? And Deanna actually just discussed it as it relates to the celebratory process when individuals are actually released from prison. You simply need support. It's unsophisticated. It's not necessarily something by which, you know, costs a lot of dollars. Sometimes it's simply a hug. Sometimes it's simply, you know, just that warm welcome, just to say, you know what, I'm glad that you are home. I'm glad that you are going to be, you know, at the very least right now, postured to make meaningful contributions back into this family, and then it'll mushroom into society, and ultimately it'll be able to mushroom into the nation. I also want to address something as well. The conversation tonight has been centered around returning citizens. However, in the state of Connecticut, in 2016, we have had approximately 114,000 individuals who have matriculated through our criminal justice system, who have actually copped out and or received felony convictions, right? I shouldn't say only, when we're actually dealing with incarceration. However, we only have 14,000 individuals in the state of Connecticut who are currently incarcerated. So what that tells us from a mathematic point of view is that the majority of the individuals who actually who have brushes with our criminal justice system aren't necessarily behind the wall. These individuals are actually within our communities. So these individuals actually, you know, and I think that Ruben alluded to it as it relates to, you know, following the dollars, right? So there is something that is that's being capitalized off of supervised release. Right? So now you have these individuals and you have these corporations and you have these companies who are actually profiting off of people by actually keeping them in the community, i.e. Meek Mills. That's the reason why I led my discussion by saying I am Meek Mills. Meek Mills is actually, you know, irrespective to whether you have, you know, some reservation about the length of his sentence, but the fact of the matter is that no individual should be on probation for that length of time for that offense. So I think that when we're actually talking about incarceration, it's not necessarily those individuals who have actually, you know, matriculated through our criminal justice system being a number. It's those individuals who have actually matriculated through our criminal justice system and have actually never gone behind the wall, but are still within our communities.
Yes, go ahead, Barry.
I'm down in the weeds, and I'm going to tell you, what I wanted when I first got out was give me a soft pretzel with mustard. I want underwear that fits, and I want a resource manual of where I need to go to find a job, and to get education, and to get training, and that's what people need the second they get out. Where do I go for help? And that's what they need.
Ms. Hoskins?
So, Deanna Hoskins with the Department of Justice. So one of the things, I always talk about policy. So one of the awareness I want to bring to individuals is, at one time we talked about private prisons profiting from the mass incarceration. Those private prisons are understanding that we're no longer doing that, and they're actually privatizing community supervision. So we have to still follow the policy of our legislation at the state, who is now privatizing the community supervision, the GPS systems, in the system to those same corporations such as GEO that was once running the private prisons.
All right, well, I want to thank all of our panelists, including the Reentry Blueprint, the Jim Baker, Deanna Bell, and Howard Adams, Mr. Jeffrey Abramowitz, Mr. William Cobb, Ms. Deanna Hoskins, Johnny Harrell, and Ruben Jones. Did I miss anybody?
You miss Lewis.
I miss Lewis.
I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, we're on Snapchat.
Because I knew Lewis was going to speak for himself.
I gotta advocate for myself.
That's right. Okay, so give everybody a hand, and we are going to turn. Please give them all a hand. Yes, we did. And so now we're going to turn the program over to our hosts. Thank you very much.
So just a couple things as we wrap up. I started the evening by asking you guys to think about why you came tonight. And I want you to just take a second to reflect back on that and think about whether this, fulfilled your expectations, whether it fulfilled what you wanted. What did you learn? What inspired you? And what should be the next steps? When you go outside, there are 3 easels out there with a lot of sticky pads and a lot of markers. So we'd love for you to answer some of those questions, what your thoughts were, what did you learn, what inspired you, and what are the next steps. We have all of your emails from Eventbrite, and so we will be sending you out contact information for all of the men and women that you see up here if you want to be in touch with them for any reason. And the last thing is, so we as I said at the beginning, this has been sort of a year of the Reentry project. When it first was conceived, that was going to be it. It was just going to end in 2 weeks, essentially, from today. We will be living on, but sort of in a different form. As a journalism collaborative, we're going to move forward, but next year, focus on a different issue. We're not going to drop Reentry, but we're going to, all of the partner outlets are still going to report on this very important issue, but we want to sort of turn our collective focus to something new. And we would like your help in deciding what that would be. So Ayana and Simone have index cards that they're going to quickly pass out along the rows. Let's start doing that now. We'd like you just to write down a couple of ideas. What should we report on? What do you want your major media outlets in the city of Philadelphia to report on for a year from a solutions-oriented perspective, like we've done with Reentry? Those of you who are listening or who are watching, you can tweet us at Reentry Updates with those ideas, or use the hashtag Reentry Blueprint. Either one, we will go back through and collect them. The other thing I'd like you to write on your note cards, if you're comfortable with it, is your cell phone number. We're going to be trying to stay in touch with folks, and this is about sort of creating a dialogue and sustaining a conversation between us as the media and you as readers, viewers, and listeners. And so we want to be able to reach you. I promise we will not abuse that, but we want to, for example, tell you the results of the poll from tonight about what the next topic might be. And we want a way to kind of stay in touch, ask you how we're doing, and solicit more ideas. So a couple ideas on those note cards. Your cell phone number, and that's about it. Thank you for coming.